Okay, so if you were a cannibal, wait, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Welcome to another episode of Cup of Joe. Today we are in downtown Calgary on 17th Avenue at the very beautiful Q-Lab coffee shop, chatting with my sister, Danielle Constantine, joining Cup of Joe, head of experience at myHSA. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. As I mentioned, she's the head of experience. So what the experience is like at myHSA, how everything has kind of come to be, and where they're headed in the future. So to start everything off, tell me a little bit about the history of myHSA and tell me a little bit about what is this company and what are you guys doing?
So myHSA was born in 2013, and it's kind of a hybrid industry between tech and insurance. We're self-insurance, so we provide a platform where employers can get a health spending account and a wellness spending account or whatever kind of plan they want, and they can provide it to their employees. And so we have the tech, we have an app, we have a desktop version, and then the employees can access our system to submit and reimburse claims. Plan admins can use our system to administer the plan to their employees, and then advisors actually sell our product. So insurance advisors can couple it with insurance plans or just sell it on its own.
Cool. So tell me about some of like the differentiating factors from myHSA versus some of your, what I guess you would see as competition.
So I think our two biggest differentiators are our tech. We're known for our tech. It's really, really great. It's really easy to use. It's fresh and modern. And we use AI in a lot of our customer service experience. And then on that, our customer service is like definitely the biggest part of our reputation in the industry. So we have like a live chat team that is really, really awesome. And then our support team available all the time. And yeah, that's kind of what sets us apart.
Now, I know that AI has kind of been, AI is kind of a buzzword in our industries, in the senior living space, everywhere, really. Like, what really is AI? How are you utilizing AI right now with myHSA? What does that look like?
So 2 years ago, myHSA brought on Intercom as a tech partner of ours, and they provide AI to us that we were able to license as what we call SAGE. So that stands for Spending Account Guidance and Expertise. So she's our AI model, and she handles 80% or more of our customer service interactions right now over chat. So that's what we have started with, but we're moving into using AI in all types of departments. We're using it to help us with adjudication, to be more accurate, more consistent, and we're hoping to bring it in internally too for training new employees and things like that too.
Very cool. So let's talk about that 80% really quick. How do you feel like that has impacted the user experience or the customer experience for your clients? Have you seen pros, cons to it? Like, what does that look like?
We mostly see pros, and a lot of people come into our system and they just want to get an instant answer or an instant navigation tip or something like that. They just need help for a second. So a lot of those people are getting help through the chat, or people who just need to find information quickly. Advisors, a lot of times, they just need a quick resource, so they can just open Sage and be like, send me the backdating guidelines, and then Sage will just pop a PDF in there for them.
Cool.
But then it also frees up our employees, our human beings, to be able to handle the bigger tasks or the more sensitive tasks, especially with health insurance. There's a lot of stuff that comes in where someone does not want to talk to a bot because their child is sick and they need to know if something's covered. So that frees up the human to give them one-on-one attention.
I love that. So it's actually giving much heavier kind of a client-first experience.
Totally.
So one of the things that our organization, and I know your organization, is very, very heavily focused on is client first and what it really means to be client first. Now, you being the head of experience with your organization, like, first off, tell me about that role. What drove you to want to be in that position?
You know, what's funny is I started at myHSA in a live chat position. I was the customer service agent, the sole one at that time, because we were in our startup phase still. So I was the only person handling customer support. And as I was growing with myHSA and myHSA was growing, they kept asking me, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to get off chats? Do you want to do something else? And I kept saying, I want to grow, but I don't want to get off chats because I want to have control of the user experience. Kept saying that over and over again. I don't want to give control of how people experience myHSA to anyone else. And then eventually they were like, okay, well, you can actually design the conversation tone and that kind of thing, but you do need to like scale. So that's when I started to hire and train and things like that. But that's kind of what put me in my position. And then I took UX design in school.
Very
and
cool.
that helped me kind of bridge the gap between the tech side of things, making sure the actual platform meets our user standard, and then the customer service side as well.
I love that. I went through something similar with our organization a couple of years ago where we were, as my progression plan started to take fruition or go to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not fruition, that's wrong. As my progression plan started, escalating, materializing, thank you. That's much better. As my progression plan started to materialize, I actually ended up having to give away my my current clients to focus on the growth of the organization. And it was a struggle for me because I'm like, man, like I've learned to love these people. I've learned to care for these people, and we become friends with, and it was so valuable and so important for me. But I realized, sounds like similar to you, that I have an opportunity to support and help way more people in the role that I'm able to take on.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're kind of doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned the fact that you've taken user experience in school. Tell me a little bit about the course and why you wanted to get into that piece as well. Actually, you know what? Before we get into that, we know what user experience is, but for our audience, what is user experience? What does that mean?
Yeah, so user experience is the design of the information architecture, the platform, how the user psychology comes into play as they move through the platform. So making sure that they log in and everything is right there. They don't need to reach out to customer service because every navigation point or everything that they want to action is right in front of them. And then it's an easy user flow from there. It's more, a lot of people think it's just about graphic design and beauty and aesthetics, which it is, but a lot of it is psychology of how the user feels as they move through, making sure there's not cognitive pollution or anything like that that's distracting them. So that's kind of what the art of UX design is.
I like that phrase, cognitive pollution. You dive into that a little bit more. That's like too much noise, too much content, too much imagery, too much all the shit.
Yeah, exactly. So you log in and you are greeted with way too many buttons and a movie and this and that and the other thing. And it's really hard to figure out, like, how do I actually just submit a claim or something like that with our system? It's very obvious when you log in. There's only a few things and they're delicately placed to make sure people know exactly what they need to do. Yeah,
make it simple for me so that I can get to the point.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, like even so on our side of our industry, I should say, senior living space, Google had some algorithm updates over the last couple of years that really affected our industry. One being the helpful content update. And the helpful content update was basically along the lines of, you need to make sure that your information is concise and easy to read at a grade 8 reading level, and make it easy. Because really, the UX of your website, Google's goal is to make their UX as strong as possible. And if they've got a good UX, then your website needs to have a good UX in order to make sure that their UX is strong.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So that's very cool. So talk to me a little bit about where you guys are headed. You talked a little bit about AI. What's going on with all that?
So we're seeing massive growth at myHSA every year. It's mind-blowing. Like in January, I was stunned to see that we had like 13,000 chats come in. Wow. Luckily, only 2,500 of those went to our human chat agents. So we were able to handle the lion's share of those using AI. And so that's kind of what we're trying to move in the direction of. And I'm very careful with the ethics around AI. I don't want people to think that we're using AI to replace people. It's more so that we're trying to use AI to scale, because we would not be able to scale at this level if we were just employing people. We'd have to have a giant call center by now. So what we've been able to do is bring in AI so that our human beings get a better job. They're not doing repetitious work. They're having more fun at work. They're getting more development. They're getting projects and things like that. So I think that's where myHSA is headed right now.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing. You and I are obviously brother and sister. Talked about that. For anybody who doesn't know, Danielle and I are 2 of 10 children. So we grew up with this really large family. Well, I would say that we grew up in the 90s, but in the 80s and 90s is when our family kind of came. And so tell me a little bit about that upbringing and why that was such a huge driving force behind the career path that you chose.
So Joe knows this, but he's number 8 and I'm number 9 in our giant family. So I think being born into a social dynamic was a huge element of understanding how to meet people where they're at, what kind of needs different people have, how to have conflict resolution, how to understand empathy mostly, like just understanding where people are coming from. And I'm just having flashbacks of Joe and I having lots of conflict resolution growing up, like tons, like more That's probably how I got
Being
where I
2
am
years
now.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe is only a couple years older than me, and so we definitely had our conflicts to resolve, but I think we learned good skills from it.
Yeah.
And, meeting people where they're at and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of built into me as a person. I think it's built into you and all of our siblings as well. And then kind of going into, I wasn't planning to go into my industry, obviously. I kind of just I started at myHSA, had no idea what they do. I was just like, okay. But then I started to understand that customer service is built into me because of empathy, which is part of nature and nurture of our upbringing. Mom and dad are obviously very empathetic and very caring. And so, it's just raised in a world of empathy.
I dig that. So, and it's similar to, well, I'm sure your industry is very similar to our industry where I shouldn't say nobody, the majority of people don't intend on getting into this industry. You kind of fall into it and then you fall in love with it and then you never want to leave.
Yeah.
And that's the wild thing about the senior living side is you kind of you recognize the need and you're like, man, okay, I'll get in there and I'll try to see what I can help. And then you start meeting the people that are involved in it and the seniors that we support and the people that are really out there to try to help people and stuff like that. Similar situation to you. You're meeting people who are having major life events and having major concerns in their life. And you're like, I'm here to support you. And you end up loving these people and you're basically utilizing your skill set, whether it be through marketing or client experience or what have you, to try to give them the best possible outcome, right?
Absolutely.
Which is very, very cool. Tell me about the owners of your company. Tell me about what their goals and their mission are and how does that push down to the rest of the crew at myHSA?
So Tim and Steve and Mark are the owners, and Tim and Steve are the captains of the ship. And I think that their vision for myHSA was always to have a platform that was kind of employee first and put the benefits in their hands. And over time, it's kind of picked up on that philosophy as we've grown and brought new products to the market and things like that. And then internally, their culture has always just been super open door, open dialogue, carve out your path, which is kind of like what you were saying with Citizen 2, where people come in and they're not necessarily privy to the industry or they don't have industry experience, but they kind of hire for the light behind someone's eyes because they're like, those hard skills can be taught and learned and things like that, but the soft skills are what matter. So I think that that's kind of where Tim and Steve built myHSA off of and how it's going and how it's going to carry on, because that's the same philosophy that we've all kind of carried throughout management.
I love that. I'm going to give a quick plug to another Cup of Joe episode with Joe Walter, where he talks about hiring and exactly what you just mentioned about the light behind people's eyes and understanding that these individuals are, they may not have the skills yet, but those skills are there. And if you're in it for the right reasons and you love the people that you're supporting and all of that, they've got the will, right? And that's what it's all about. So tell me, Tim, Steve, and Mark, that culture that they've created, how that's pushing down to to everybody else. Tell me about the culture within your team and what all that looks like.
Yeah, so the culture in the team it's pretty hilarious because we always joke that if we did have an HR department, it would probably have a lot of reports, but not because we make a lot of it's so kind, it's so tender when we go there. It's just that we are so able to be ourselves that there's no everyone can just kind of chill and lay back, and we just make sure that everyone's having a good time. The culture is very much still, even though myHSA is a well-established company now, it's still very startup tech feel. You go into the office and there's a wall that I painted, and then we put the logo up a little crooked and but it's got that startup I don't know, energy. It's just such a good place to be. Everybody loves it there, It's so cool. So when we're
talking about culture always kind of starts with the C-suite, the senior leadership team, all of that kind of stuff. And it ends up kind of getting brought down in a lot of situations when an organization gets really big. Sometimes that culture aspect can start to disintegrate a little bit. You start to lose different aspects of that and all of that. And that's one thing that Citizen and Pod Marketing, our parent company, has done really, really well, is keeping that culture really, really strong. With your organization right now, how large is your organization?
We have, I should know this, we have like 25 employees in office, and then we have a fair amount of employees, like 10 or 12 that are remote. Okay,
so that's an interesting thing too. So with that 25, I've seen, you and I, like you started with this organization, what, about 6 years ago?
Yeah, like 6 or 7, going on 7, yeah. Going on 7.
And it's grown quite a bit since you've joined.
Yes.
Like substantially, right?
Substantially.
So how are you guys maintaining that culture as you're growing? Like, I think when you came on, you were like maybe 1 of 5.
Yeah.
Now there's 30.
Yeah. It was a very small, we like started in this little tiny house in Marda Loop, and everyone was just like packed like sardines in there. And so it started out small, and it was really easy to have that culture in the air, like you said, because I would look up from my computer and I'd see Tim sitting right across from me, and I'd have my coworkers sitting right beside me. And now we're in a little bit of a larger office space, and we've got different people in different rooms and things like that. But I think we keep the culture going by just making sure that when everyone walks in the door, they get a warm welcome. We still have an open office concept. We go for ice cream. We're right down the street from Made by Marcus, so we'll always go for ice cream. And we always make sure we check in with each other on a more personal level before we get to work. And yeah, Tim and Steve are still in the office. Like CEO and COO are still sitting right there in the open office. They're not closed off from everyone else. They're still out there laughing at all the same memes that we're sharing and stuff like that. Like there's no, some companies have a real sense of like hierarchy, and our company, everyone is just colleagues. It's actually funny. So one time my brother Chris came to meet me at the office to drop off his dog. We also allow dogs at the office. So he was dropping off his dog, Layla. And I remember I just in the heat of the moment introduced Tim to Chris as my CEO. And Tim shot this look at me and he was like, "I'm not your CEO, I'm your colleague." And I was like, "I'm sorry, that was so awkward." But and Chris, he laughed it off and stuff too. But it was kind of that's the exact kind of culture we have.
Well, and I think that's so important. So I know we're kind of talking about the experience that you're leading, and you are the head of experience not only for user experience, your clients, but your experience internally within your organization and all those different aspects. And I think that a lot of people forget. Sorry, I should say a lot of times people forget that the experience within your organization emulates and pushes out to the client base that you're supporting, right? And so if you're able to create an amazing culture within your organization based on what the C-suite or the leadership team and yourself have basically been able to create, that's something that emulates through to the clients that you guys are supporting. With all of that being said, like, what are you most proud of that you guys are working on right now to make that experience as strong as it can possibly be, whether that be internal or external?
I think what I'm most excited about right now is kind of the organization of internal staff based on their skill set. So kind of like what you were saying, where what our internal looks like is going to emulate how our external is perceived. So making sure that if someone has a great skill set here, like someone's really excited about building AI, then we are like, go for it, man. Like, this is so awesome, do it. And we're kind of right now just putting people into the exact right positions to make the whole company stronger, make everyone happier, which emulates to everyone outside that everyone at myHSA is having a good time and doing what they're passionate about. So that's kind of what I'm excited about right now is what we're working on.
And I think that goes back to what you said, the light behind the eyes. Right people, right seat, right? Like, you may have the right person in the wrong seat.
Totally.
If you got the wrong person in the wrong seat, you got to obviously do something about that. But if you got the right people in the wrong seat and just trying to figure out where they exist in your space because you know that they're in it for the right reasons and they genuinely care, then at least you've got your fundamentals and you're able to build off of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun. Danielle, tell me about a memory that you have of being a child with me, something that's not too, dicey. I don't want to hear about broken legs on film.
No chair story.
No chair stories.
That's the first one that came to mind.
For the audience, I'll give you a little bit of context. We live in Calgary, Alberta. Yeah, it's pretty snowy here. And one day Danielle and I were tobogganing. We were playing cops and robbers. I was the robber. She was the cop. She was chasing me down the hill. And I'd made a hard stop, and she ran right into me and broke her leg. Our brother Chris, who we mentioned earlier, was able to come down the hill and save her and bring her up, and she needed to get all casted up, and that was not a good thing. But
that's all right.
And then I've got a scar from when I was a little kid from Danielle also being little, maybe 2 or 3, tossing a plastic chair at my head. Anyways, long story short.
Good times.
Good times. You know, this is what happens when you have 9 brothers and sisters. It's a lot of fun. Lots of scars, lots of good memories. But yeah, tell me a little bit about like your memories of childhood growing up and things like that, and kind of, I guess, where the fundamentals come from. Like, tell me about your childhood in the 90s and all of that. You obviously grew up in a big, old Catholic family. So, like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think growing up, and we might have very similar experiences, we might have very different experiences, but growing up in our family, there's 6 boys and 4 girls. So it was always kind of interesting because I have bookend brothers. I'm between 2 boys. My sisters are all quite a bit older, and usually the youngest sister would kind of lean on her sisters for friendship and companionship and kind of who they idolize, I would say. But here I was, number 9 between Joe and Tom, and Joe was at my school with me. He was, you know, playing on the football team and all these things. So then I kind of adopted this. What?
Just thinking about how strong I am playing on the football team. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, like, I picture this little Danielle, and you'll know what I'm thinking of, in grade 5 or 6 or something. And yes, I wore baggy jeans then too. And I used to kind of dress on the boy side, like very tomboy. And at recess, I would play football with the boys. I didn't want to do anything with the girls in class. I just wanted to play football with the boys because Joe taught me how to throw a spiral. And I was like, I'm going to be able to keep up. And it's funny, it sounds hilarious, but there was something instilled in me as a little girl that was like, why can't I play with the boys?
Yeah,
why can't I? Well, I can run as fast as they can. And they're not allowed to tackle me.
She had a better throw than I did, and like 3 years younger than I was. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and so I think growing up kind of in a family with such a huge dynamic and specifically having boys around, I was never told that because I'm a girl, I can't do this or I can't do that. It was always like, yeah, why not? Mom bought me a football for Christmas one year. The other year, she bought me hockey pads for street hockey and stuff. There was no, there was no difference between me being a girl and the boys, the brothers. In fact, the brothers probably had less sports equipment than I did.
Well, they weren't really the sporty types, most of them, yeah.
But yeah, I think it just instilled a confidence that I still have where I'm like, I'd never say I can't do something. I always try it before I say I can't do it. And I think you're the same. And I think most of the siblings are the same way.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so our head of internal marketing, Natasha, asked us to do a lightning round. Now, the lightning round is going to go back and forth. And I'm going to let you ask the first question, whatever you want to ask. And we're going to play back and forth. Okay, well, then I can start.
Okay.
Okay, so if you were a cannibal, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's be cool. Danielle, thank you so much for joining Cup of Joe. Before we finish off, though, I'm going to give a quick plug to Spill the Tea. Tell me a little bit about what Spill the Tea is.
So Spill the Tea is just my little LinkedIn segment where I spill the tea on like misconceptions about health spending accounts and even how myHSA runs as a business. Because without saying too much, I think people have a little bit of uncomfortable emotion around health insurance right now.
Sure.
And so I think it's really important that we make it clear how myHSA stands apart from typical traditional insurance. And yeah, I kind of just like, I'm extra casual in there. I use a lot of slang, not too much slang, but a lot of slang. And yeah, keep it professional, but yeah.
Oh no, professional, gross.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and for joining us. Feel free to reach out to either one of us if you have any questions. Danielle, how can they get in touch with you?
They can email me at Danielle@getmyHSA.
Danielle@getmyHSA.com.
Oh yeah, that would help.
.com. Okay, cool. And I'm Joe van Kampen, Joe@citizen55.com. Thank you guys so much for joining.